Cool. How's it going?
Good. Good. Doing some vibe coding.
Always interesting, fun and frustrating all together.
Yeah, it's been interesting. Um, but I want to talk to you about. I thought we could start talking about radar and your thinking around these different layers or planes.
Yeah, I'll try my best. I don't know how much I have it memorized, right? But like we can talk about it at high level and see where we can go, right?
Yeah. So let's see. What is map? I generated these questions and they don't seem to make sense. Um, I was talking with customer today, one of the new ones that Sori is working on, and she was mentioning some issues with Apple. No, this was you. Does map? This is from one of your transcripts, actually. So, uh, does map is map a thing? If I say map, their sending domain is on map.
Uh uh yeah, it's not hold on, let me think like there's a thing with Apple Mail. I'm trying to remember. This is
Yeah.
that you're definitely going down the deliverability route, right? Uh,
No, it's more high level than that. It's just a possibly unnecessary detail.
well, they have their own sort of like MPP, right? I think that's what you're talking about, like mail privacy protection. Is that
Yeah,
not MAP, but MPP?
MPP. Yeah, must be. So you had a demo call, um, and they were sending a domain on MPP and on Sendex. Um, Apple delivered on Sendex, but not on MPP. Or was it MAP?
I don't know. MPP is a protection policy Apple put in place, um, that basically it has more to do with like analytics on whether something's delivered or not, because they basically preload emails.
Hmm.
Um, so a lot of people don't have transparency as to like what's actually happening in Apple Mail. That's the challenge.
Yeah. Okay.
But where are you going with it?
I'm gonna switch gears.
Okay.
Um, okay. Here we go. So we've been talking a lot about control plane. Um, I've been talking a lot about it too, actually, trying to be able to articulate it to people in conversation. Um, Most people in email they talk about the old stuff, right? MTAs, ESPs, sending engines, um, deliverability tools, visibility. But this new framing, this control plane, or what we're calling radar, where does this framing come from for you, and why do you think people aren't talking about it quite yet?
I, I think people are talking about it just in different formats, right? Like people are using certain terms, um, and a lot of people are looking at it more from the lens in which they're living. So like if you're a ESP, that's an orchestration platform, a front end sort of software solution, you're looking at it from within the levels of that you can control, right? So you're
Hmm.
looking at how do I send emails smarter, more intelligently that will deliver and it's still like some level of the visibility control plane optimization for it,
Hmm.
but if you're not running your own sort of MTAs, or you're sending off of other sending engines and MTAs and across multiple sort of providers, then you're only living within the realm that you can control. That being said, I'm seeing a lot of people talk about enhancing sort of, let's say, layers of compliance, governance, authentication. Those things become really important for deliverability
Hmm.
in both email and SMS and and all messaging and conversations. To be honest, because as there's more builders, as there's more messages being sent, uh, there's also more risk, right? And so this is being talked about, but the other layers that are also being talked about is having some level of control, um, smarter decisions. Decisions is a word that keeps coming up. Control is a word that keeps coming up. Um, yeah, authentication, compliance, security, that keeps coming up. But
Hmm.
everyone is talking about it, just in fragmented pieces, in my opinion, and within the
Yeah.
lens that they live. Right. Um,
Right.
So what we have, or I think what's interesting about our vision or with Send Post Radar is that since we are full email lifecycle from front end orchestration to sending engine to complete MTA in the cloud, having a control layer that sits between even our platforms that gives pure visibility, that's agnostic to any sending engine, that's agnostic to any front end, is the lens in which we're thinking, right? So I would say like one advantage is we have the complete picture and the full controls to actually like understand what's really possible here. Not saying not everyone can't. There's other players in this space with the similar sort of full life cycle stack. But I would also say our entire product is developed in a way that we're moving extremely fast. Um, I think like we're not having to remodel like our business or revenue models or pricing or anything that kind of like derails how fast we're moving and how we sort of like there's no huge pivots going on. We're just pushing in all of the same direction. So I think we can right now we're just moving really fast with an understanding of that. Hey, these are the components that people are talking about. This is the layer in which will be important next, because otherwise, if you don't have it, you're gonna have deliverability problems across any messages you're sending.
Let's try this from the top. We in your answer you said it and um, a few times, and I know Priya wants us to be specific so she can grab clips from you. Let's just start by defining terms. So um, you've been on ESP calls this last week or two. You're talking about this thing called control plane and Sendex radar. Um,
Send post radar. Yeah.
Send post radar. Let's back up a little bit and say, look at like what's the problem you're seeing, and what is this new framework in particular to address it?
Yeah. So the question is ultimately what are we looking at here in the world of messaging, conversations, email, SMS? What sort of what's our bigger picture vision and where this is going and what are we working on? We've created a product called Send Post Radar that ultimately um, creates a control plane layer that addresses some important components of where the world's going. The world is moving into a more secure compliance uh, authentication requirements in order to deliver messages. That's one aspect. The other is people are looking from the perspective of their sending, and they've always kind of done this, but from a resilience perspective, they're looking at like, how do I get messages delivered? And one solution in their mind is spread my sending across multiple providers, sending providers, right? The other aspect of this is understanding visibility. So analytics or understanding what's actually happening across like all of your sending, what's having revenue impact, what customers are sort of like, what do they look like across the board?
Mhm.
Um, and then on top of that is how do I control all of this? How do I actually have controls as to what I'm seeing? So SendPost Radar addresses all of this with a basically a central control plane that lives between the front end orchestration side of things on the traditional ESP software and the back end side on the sending engine and an MTA side of things that gives you an agnostic layer that can plug into any front end into any sort of sending engine or MTA that gives you those visibility, those controls, um, the compliance layer, the governance layer, and basically the things that are required for messages to truly get delivered at not just a high rate, but protecting your sending and your own sort of reputation, as well as like syncing up and aligning to the end provider to actually get that delivered. So you're only sending what matters. You're sending on channels that get delivered, uh, and our system is is self-healing and rerouting for optimizations with basically an AI deliverability agent that lives on top of this. It gets smarter and smarter with the data that you send it.
Mhm. What would you say this solves? Like, what are the problems happening now that are kind of unique to our time?
Well, I think what we're seeing now from and again, like I kind of like am broad brushing this across not just email, even though that's like our central um, focus right now. But we're moving into multi-channel messaging, and what we're seeing is a very big uptick in deliverability issues, primarily because of, and it might be behind the scenes for a lot of folks. Uh, when we see people come to us, we can see this happening across the industry, and it
Mhm.
doesn't matter if you're sending small volumes, large volumes. Um, a lot of people that were traditionally sending well are having problems, um, and there's a new level of and types of issues in here that people don't have an understanding of, right? Uh, I think you're talking about like, why is my mail getting delivered on one end provider, Gmail, AT&T, Yahoo, and not another, right?
Mhm.
And if it's not, what are my sort of like error messages that are coming up? What does my authentication look like? How is my throttling and speeds across each provider? And a lot of people don't have never traditionally have these controls, right? Even from a manual perspective, like some do from MTAs, some don't, but like generally speaking, these are complex issues that a lot of people never get into. They used to just send emails and call it a day.
Mhm.
What we're seeing is more and more people interested on the inner workings of what actually delivers email because they're seeing surface issues surface that never sort of did in the past, and this is becoming more and more of an issue.
Walk me through a bad day operationally for an ESP right now. And you've spoken with enough of them to know what a bad day looks like. Like, um, tell me how that day looks like now, and then compare it with what it could look like with Sendex Radar, kind of sitting in between that infrastructure and provider.
Sure, I think a bad day of yesterday versus today are two different things. And I say yesterday, I mean a few years back, right? And I think this is why there's a pressure point on today. So a few years back, there's still similar issues with like customers surfacing issues or that my email didn't get sent or um, there's something wrong. I can feel it. There's a lot of like I can feel it's going on, and then the support system would have to kick in and decide, how do I help this customer? One, can I help this customer? And how do I prioritize my help across my customers, right? So
Mhm.
now we're seeing that just exacerbated into the point where if I don't get this right now, there's a
Mhm.
much bigger impact on the business. So what we're saying is if I'm not concentrating on the most revenue impactful customers, if I'm not doing a top-down prioritization, if I'm not giving my team segmented customers to really concentrate on, and I don't have the tools to actually help them, there's
Mhm.
becoming more friction, harder problems to solve, and if I don't have those tools, other people will have them
Mhm.
because there's those are surfacing as well. So there's just this mismatch of or a mix up mismatch mix. I don't know. Like there's this mashup of sort of like things surfacing that are exacerbated now. And I think it's massive prioritization. I think it's understanding it across your entire customer base, what's actually going on, not from an individual customer plus your own infra, and then being able to drill in and out of those things to solve real problems and having the tools to do it.
You describe radar as sitting between the MTA and the traditional ESP dashboard or front end. What's actually living in that layer today for most ESPs?
Uh, a lot, most DSPs don't have this layer, right?
And
Like
what's the cost of there not being anything there?
I think it's huge, and that's what we're trying to surface right now, to be honest, right? So
Mhm.
the real revenue impact of this is another conversation, and I think the other side of it is it's not just a loss on deliverability, it's a loss also on like useless sending or risk profiled sending. So like 20 to 30% of any of your volume coming through will bounce or be some level of higher medium risk that actually maybe shouldn't have been delivered. That can affect your own sending reputation, your ability to like deliver to the contacts you need to deliver most, right?
Mhm.
So, and not only that, the worse than that is you're paying for those volumes to then damage yourself, right? Like,
Mhm.
so when you don't have this like layer that actually understands your sending, how it maps to the providers, what's allowed and isn't, really cross-checking your authentication, um, then you're poorly sending and you're creating a scenario in which you're paying for problems and lower deliverability. Like all of that mashup is a huge revenue impact at the end of the day on the front
Mhm.
and the back, right? So
Mhm.
this layer of optimization that lives in between is vital, and I would say generally speaking, uh, doesn't exist even for the largest senders out there.
Yeah.
And not just visibility, but like control, the governance layer, the things that are making this sort of like truly optimized sending. Uh, it's always been the job of a deliverability specialist at a large volume sending company to sort of like tweak these things, and that might be like SSHing in, making some adjustments to the MTA, restarting servers. Like that's an insane old school process that should never exist anymore. Number one, uh, but two, like those types of understanding are now surfacing in ways that can be solved in much better, more optimal
Mm.
ways.
We were talking with LB the other day. We had a very high risk sender kind of come in and mess a lot of things up, or try to, and then they left. And we were talking about, your point of view was like, bring it on. Like the product is gonna identify um, identify these risky senders and just take the appropriate action. There's kind of like a product resilience in your vision here, and I'd love for you to explain what that is.
Yeah, I mean, I think from the perspective of how this used to work,
Mhm.
like a Mailchimp is a great example. It'd just be like, hey, there are certain filters, and not everybody knows what they are. Only sort of like Mailchimp knows what they are, but people generally surface the issues, and you can kind of map those just in like Reddit threads and things from frustration being blocked, right? Like, what are the types of customers that are being blocked? It seems like it's industry specific. It might even be like layers to this. Like, if you have this company, but your domain's associated with another company, um, that can be blocked.
Mhm.
even if it's a different industry. I don't know. There's layers of this that seem quote unquote traditionally dumb per
Mhm.
se, right? It's like you have a lot. That's why you have a lot of people complaining because they feel mistreated. Now, the vision here is to take that and make it smart. How does that look? Well, uh, anybody should be able to send through our system, and our system should be able to navigate them appropriately. Block them if necessary, sure, but they will know that they're malicious fishers or something to that effect. Like those people aren't going to sit around on Reddit and complain that they got screwed, right? What will really happen is the medium and the gray area is the toughest, right? So when you have a smart system, they send something, we only deliver a portion of their volume, or we throttle back others, or reroute it, or change speeds on providers, those sorts of things. Um, then we're basically creating a system that then teams up with them, right? And we're
Mhm.
saying, hey, listen, this is what your traffic looks like. This is the profile of your traffic. Here's what's risky. Here's how we
Mhm.
saved you, and here's
Mhm.
how it's actually looking now on the provider side from a deliverability perspective, right? So, uh, what we're saying is the volume that we're letting through is doing well,
Mhm.
right? But here's your percentage of volume that isn't doing well, and we're not letting it through, right? And
Mhm.
and and generally speaking, then you have a conversation to have, right? A real one that's contextual, that matters, that
Mhm.
says, hey, what do we need to do to make that better? Because
Mhm.
honestly, also through our system, the reality is you're gonna be charged more. You're gonna be paying more if you send risky volume through it, because you're gonna
Mhm.
have more decisions. You're gonna have more sort of credits used. You're gonna have all kinds of different issues, right?
Mhm.
Um, we're incentivizing better volume through the system too. So
Mhm.
we want to help you spend less, and that's a good
Mhm.
thing. That's a good thing too, because we're always going to be dealing with risky sending, especially from whether that's coming from APIs, humans, agents, you name it. Like
Mhm.
these things are complex, and we'll be dealing with that. We want to work with the lower risky senders. We want to identify how to be better senders, and we want to help you do that.
Mhm.
Basically, we're your team to help you spend less, send better, and make providers happy.
I like that. That's quotable. Spend less, send better, make providers happy.
Yeah. The three-part mantra, right?
Nice. Cool.